Yeah, Venerable Sir, yeah, Dhamma friends, the time for our today's Dhamma talk. To start the Dhamma talk, everyone may give the concept 3 times, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Katamaca sa bhikkhave majjhima patipada tathagatena abhitam buddha. Chakku karani jnana karani upasamaya abhinyaya sambodhaya nibbānāya samvattati. Ayamiva ariyo attangiko maggo siyatidam samma ditti samma sankappo samma vācā samma kammanto samma ājīvo samma vāyāmo samma sati samma samādhīti. Dear Dhamma friends, today we are in the 9th day of our retreat, and each day we were delivering a talk, and today is the 9th talk. And throughout the series we maintain the same topic, namely the Pavatum Sutta, recorded first discourse of the enlightenment, and it is known as the turning of the wheel of Dhamma. And as far as the basic concepts are concerned, the discourse is opening with introduction of 2 extremes, which is to be avoided by the meditators, namely the gratification of sensual pleasure and the self-mortification. And by avoiding, one has to assimilate the middle path, and that is the way towards the liberation. And the middle path is enumerated as 8 noble paths. There are 8 aspects contributing, and then the Buddha comes to the next subject of the 4 noble truths, the individual way of analyzing the problem and finding the way out. And after going through the basically the 4 noble truths, the last one, we come to the way out of this, way towards this enumeration or the final liberation. Again, he refers back to the same middle path or the same Noble Eightfold Path, and that is what we were dealing for the last few days. And this Noble Eightfold Path, usually in the introductory way, consists 3 major things, namely moral restrainment, concentration restrainment, and the wisdom restrainment. And usually in the teaching, it says the morality is leading to concentration, and the concentration is opening the doors to the wisdom, and they are working in a cyclic manner. But when come to the Noble Eightfold Path, it is presented in a somewhat radical way. It says this, how the wisdom training, the proper or right view and the right thought help in someone's moral restrainment. And with these 2, how the concentration achieved. So first 2 aspects, namely the correct view and the correct thoughts, are considered as the wisdom training, and that is what we completed so far by having a foundation on wisdom, that means correct view and the correct thought, then now presenting what is the meaning of the correct word, correct deeds and correct livelihood. This is what in general known as the moral training and the moral restrainment. So unless otherwise you are well founded in the wisdom training, your moral training is not well predictable, not durable. Whatever may be you restrain in terms of verbal expressions and the physical deeds and your livelihood, and it is not predictable, it is not really leading to the middle path. So therefore, always you must have the proper background from the wisdom. So even that the moral, the correct thoughts, the right thoughts. Yesterday we discussed about the wrong thoughts, basically 3, and corresponding to each 3, one has to develop the correct thoughts. The kama vitakka, the thoughts related with the sensuous pleasure, must be replaced by the renunciation, and vyapada vitakka, the ill will, must be replaced by the loving kindness meditation, and vihimsa vitakka, lack of compassion, should be compensated with the the meditation on the compassion, the karuna. And when these are introduced, basically you have to understand they are not so easy to do. So therefore there are techniques to develop all these things. When you are developing, you will be cultured and you will be uplifted, and slowly your thinking pattern will come to the moderate, the middle path. And therefore at the beginning you give the basic understanding about, or basic consideration about this emancipation, the loving kindness and the compassion. And when this happens, internally yet there may be some shades of or kind of thoughts related to these things, but still not so very destructive. They appear like an inert kind of thoughts or background kind of thoughts, still showing some colors of the wrong thoughts. And while it is in the evolution, the yogi finds difficult to understand whether it is benevolent or malevolent. So therefore, teacher says, don't worry much about at the beginning about this, the inner kind of thought, as far as they are directly not related with the sensuous pleasure, as far as they are not related directly with the ill will and the lack of compassion, don't worry much about, try to maximize your primary object, and then slowly they will be fading off from the screen. And at that time, one has to be a little patient, and it is somewhat related with the third kind of establishment of the mindfulness, that is chittanupassana. You are building upon the mindfulness to see the mind, how it is working. Whenever you introduce this emancipation, loving kindness and the compassion, how the mind is adjusting into the new way, new correct kind of words and correct kind of thoughts. And you have to be patient, you have to be indifferent to them, and continue with the mindfulness, on the primary object. Then only slowly you will understand when the thoughts are becoming somewhat cultured and coming to the moderate level, your verbal expressions accordingly is changing. Slowly it is changing. It will verbally, you will do away with lying and frivolous talks, harsh words and tail carrying and all the kind of things slowly. And because you know, if you are not much mindful and responsible about what we talk, you get committed into these words, and ultimately when you come and sit, you find very difficult to maintain the peace of mind. So therefore, it is better to find the cure and the healing, better to find a prevention than the cure. So what we do normally, without having the good foundation of the wisdom, we commit it and try to cure it or heal it. But when you are coming from the wisdom base, you understand the prevention is better. So therefore, you become mindful what you are talking about. Specifically in the meditation retreat, it is very, very sensitive. But even in the day-to-day activities, when you go back, you have to understand the words it interprets or represents your mental setup, and therefore always you have to filter it in such a way not to commit in the moral or in the sense verbal misdeeds. And while it is happening, this evolution taking place, you have to consider about your physical deeds also, and there is a connection. If you are restraining yourself with the verbal restrainment, it is in a way, indirect way, helping you to restrain your physical deeds. And this time, when the verbal and physical deeds are restraining, it's a kind of evolution in the yogi's life, and there is no special hard and fast set of syllabus or rules how to cope up with the society at that time. Often, the meditators find very difficult to cope up with the society because society will never understand what is happening within the yogi. So therefore, the yogi, the practitioner, is the only one has to tolerate it, has to compensate it, because he or she can understand why the society is reacting like that, but we can't expect or we can't ask the society to sympathize us. So therefore they are undergoing a kind of changes in your physical and verbal deeds, and then with reference to the medium path or moderate path or middle path, you have to come to a kind of a proper livelihood or correct livelihood in order to maintain your integrity, maintain your moral life, maintain your physical deeds and the verbal deeds. So at this stage, the traditional Buddhist countries, cultures, offering the monastic life. And you can renunciate in the ceremonial way and go and live a celibate life, so that you will get the community, those who have taken vows to not to have verbal misdeeds, physical misdeeds, and the correct livelihood. But if you have no chances or not fortunate enough to do that, still if you are living in the worldly life, the family life and the social life, I would say it's a very dramatic and very challenging and very colorful, but each and every moment is a challenge. Each and every moment you have to be very vigilant, very diligent, and understanding both the extremes, how to assimilate the middle path and maintain it. And whenever you hit the target, you feel you develop your confidence, your mind, the mental power increases. Whenever you hit the wrong thing, either you take the combination towards the sensuous gratification or self-mortification, you are the very first to understand is the wrong thing. And therefore, the short cycles are going to show you immediate effect of the two wrong paths and how to select the middle path. So the Buddha find the relationship between this correct livelihood and the amount of energy or your energy aspects relationship. If you are often hitting the wrong combinations or to the extremes, you feel so exhausted. You find very tensed. You find very frustrated. But if you are skillful enough to select the middle path patiently and to go, you find quite energetic and you have enough energy, the creativity, everything is there. So therefore, more and more you find the correct livelihood, you get reserved energy reservation, then even in the busy life, you can find a fairly amount of time to allocate for intensive meditation like sitting and walking. Otherwise, you find it is very difficult to cope up with. So therefore, the relationship is there in between this correct livelihood and the correct amount of energy. So that is why the Buddhist societies have this alternative way of monastic life or the celibate life. You are with enough time, enough resources and enough energies, and therefore one has to take an individual decision. Of course, the community of monks and the nuns is accepted thing in the traditional countries, Buddhist countries, but when you are studying the Noble Eightfold Path, so very clearly indicate this Noble Eightfold Path give an answer in the individual basis rather than in the political basis or in the community basis. So therefore, one has to assimilate one's own path, specifically in between this correct livelihood and the correct energy. So, if you are at that level, that means you are fairly on the grounds of wisdom training and the moral training. Now you are going to experience or going to go into the concentration training. There it starts with the energy. In the Western kind of studies, Western kind of approach, always try to show the energy aspect is not much necessary. So impromptu happenings and kind of by just mere letting go, the concentration will happen. That is the way many Westerners like to see the picture. But when you are studying the very life of the Buddha, how much energy and effort you can understand his early life. And when he is preaching the Dhamma, specifically towards Parinibbana, the great passing away, he again and again stress these 37 factors of enlightenment, the Bodhipakkhiya Dhamma, and he gives different sets of tools, and the energy is mentioned 9 times within these 37 enlightenment factors. This is the highest occurrence. This is the mental factor happening again and again, most frequently. So therefore one has to understand, even you have your wisdom, even you have restraint with understanding about your morality, the energy aspect is very important to cut through this jungle of defilements. So therefore, you must not take it very easy. This is not to create unwanted phobia or fear. In the early part, as I mentioned, the energy expressed here as virya in Pali, at the beginning demand a very high amounts. And therefore, if you are starting with very slack mind, very unprepared mind, definitely you will end up with a disappointment. So therefore, you have to understand with due respect and systematic way that at the beginning you have to have a huge amount of energy to get the early part of your mindfulness and the concentration. So, for example, when you sit, early few minutes, you know how much wrestling you have to do with these external sounds and the thoughts and the pains, always throbbing into. So, if you are to cut through them and to get the connection with the primary object face to face, the struggling must be there. So therefore, still in the Western way, it says daily you must start the meditation as a beginner. You always try to develop the beginner's mind. You must never assume that I am an experienced yogi, so therefore I must have peace of mind. I must have already develop mindfulness and already develop concentration. That's the wrong way of assuming you, and it is rather leading to the conceit. So therefore, as far as the energy is concerned, daily you must start as a beginner. And daily you must see, for an example, you are a newly born baby learning how to breathe. If we are to take the breath as the main object of meditation, the newly born baby has to learn, has to do on breathing. So exactly you have to see each and every breath is a new one, and you must be exerting energy, or it is called diligent effort. Otherwise, you will beat on bush rather than shooting onto the target. So therefore, when you are doing a target shooting, if you are overexerting, you will go beyond the target, and if you are lack of energy, shortfall of the target, so the amount of energy to reach the target is not you find in the standard books. You have to do and learn by your trial and error. So therefore, at the beginning you have to have an enormous reservation of energy and keep on doing, and even the target shooting, a lot of mishaps happen. And hardly any at the beginning, you will just reach the target. But when you keep on practicing slowly, you will understand how to reach the target with certain amount of assurance, certain amount of confidence, and even then next day when you start, you have to again start as a beginner. So therefore, the amount of energy is quite a critical thing. Too much energy leading to disturbed mind or perplexity of the mind, too much of thinking and heated up. Too less energy leading to the slimy, sloth and torpor and sleepiness. So the correct amount of energy you have to, by trial and error, you have to do. So whenever you are developing the faith and the wisdom, the faith aspect and the wisdom has to be balanced. If you are too much with the faith, you will believe whatever the people tell, and you will be end up with without any aim, what is to be given the priority. But instead, if you are going to take the way to the wisdom, be too much of analytical, and you can't proceed. So wisdom and faith has to be balanced. And energy as the concentration also have certain amount of relationship. If it is too much or too less energy, no healthy proper concentration. And as I mentioned, the perplexity of the mind or sliminess can happen. So therefore, the energy and the concentration also has to be balanced, and they are the mindfulness, the next aspect of this Noble Eightfold Path is taking the supervisors or monitors point of view. It says, if you stretch your 5 fingers, the small finger is representing the faith. The thumb is representing the wisdom, and they are in the 2 corners. They has to be balance each other. And second finger is representing the energy, and the 4th finger is representing the concentration. These 2 has to be balanced. The middle finger, the tall one, is the mindfulness. And when you stretch the hand, usually mindfulness is directed to the infinitum. And all the other angles, all the other fingers are in an angle. So they are creating turmoils. They are making circles. They have their own turn. And therefore, the day mindfulness takes the upper hand and fix all the fingers into one pointed way, then the situation is completely different. Then it is well organized and the power line is straightened, then the power transmission happens. That is called the least frictional path. Whenever they are, even though all the 5 healthy things are working, if they are working by their own agenda, according to their own single wish, then each other become destructive to each other. Wisdom becomes destructive to the faith, and the faith becomes destructive to wisdom. And the energy will become destructive to the concentration, and concentration will antagonize the energy. The mindfulness is the one observe whether these things are in a correct proportion. It's just like in a horse cart, the horses are well maintained by the driver, the coach will follow smoothly. But if the horses are running in all the directions, even they are very energetic, it's a matter of in the skill of the driver, and there won't be a smooth run. So likewise, the mindfulness has to always balance and come close with the energy. Therefore, diligent effort and precise aiming has to work like twins. The precise aiming usually coming from the mindfulness. The diligent effort is what we call samma vayama. These 2 has to come in terms with. So this is what the maturity of the yogi. And once the precise aiming and the diligent effort come into being, you feel the smoothness and steady flow and the durability with the primary object. Primary object can keep face-to-face long time. So therefore, at the beginning, you have to exert energy, still not to over-exceed or fall short of the target. And then once you develop the target shooting and focusing, the diligent effort, slowly you learn the art, how to keep the primary object face-to-face. At the beginning, you will expect that theoretically, the primary object only must dominate in the stage. All the other negative things must be eradicated, like a very robust kind of approach you have. But once you develop the proper balancing of the energy, you may find even the thoughts are there in the background, even the certain amount of pains are there in your posture, even the sounds are there in the background, no problem as far as you can keep the object face to face. That is to say, the thoughts are coming, but there is no message. So, don't worry. Pains are there, but bearable. Don't worry. Sounds are there, it is not addressing you. Don't worry. So there you understand, not by mere manhandling, not by mere physical elimination, but by giving the proper priority to the primary object, you learn how to balance with the due amount of energy. That is the point, the middle part of the energy. you understand how to run the machine very smoothly without much wear and tear. There may be little amount of thoughts, there may be little amount of sounds and pains, but never mind, as our primary object is there, and still you can find the mindfulness is consistent. As if you are handling everything at a time, like a multitask. You can see thoughts, but you are not reading its content. You can feel the pain, but you know it's bearable. And you are aware of the sounds, but you do not know the content of it, the message. But instead, you go deep into the primary object as to see the beginning, the middle, the end of the primary object. And its elementary characteristics of the rubbing sensation of the breath, heat and cold difference of the in-breath and out-breath, and the vibrations, cohesiveness, fluidity, all the kind of thing you go in. More and more you deep go into the primary object, that plunging into the primary object, certain amount of energy is necessary. More you go immediate with the primary object, the others, sounds, pain, thought, will be less and less significant. So they are wrestling is happening. So this is attributable directly to the precise aiming and diligent effort. So this is the way you use the tools in a very efficient way. So when you go there, after a certain effort or certain amount of the closeness, proximity to the object, even in the insight meditation, just like the concentration meditation, mind hugged with the primary object as if it is penetrating into the object like. Because the object and the mind both come so close, working in the same vibration as if they are merging each other, as if they are penetrating each other. Of course, it is directly happening in the samatha meditation, on the the concentration meditation, but exactly the same thing, practically, you can observe in insight meditation. It is called momentary concentration, and this momentary concentration, unless otherwise you experience, you will never believe such a thing is possible. Amidst of all sounds, amidst of all thoughts, amidst of all pains, still the mind is very close to face with the object. There is no gap between the noting mind and noted object. So when that happens, you have to understand that is the maximum you can do, their own word, not necessary to have any energy. The meditation itself will create the necessary energy, just like a running car, recharging the battery and keep the battery alive. At the beginning, of course, you have already reserved current in the battery so that you can have the self-starter working and the signals and the horns are working. But when the car is running, it is recharging its own battery, like the meditation come into the proper terms with, and it knows how to maintain this balance. When that happens, you must know how to give up, how to let go, how to let the plane to do autopiloting. Or like you are in a chauffeur-driven car, the professional driver is there, you can just entertain your trip. You must not be a backseat driver. Forking into that, instructing to the driver, that indicates you are not a good master. And that is the point where you give meditation to take its own, but even then that is not the final emancipation or liberation. And then onward only the Dhamma, the turning the wheel of Dhamma, is going to take place in its real terms. And you are no more. Your will, your volition, your intention, and your forking fingers, everything slowly withdraw. And you can feel the smooth run. Usually for a yogi, this to happen Even advanced yoga, it takes 35 to 45 minutes to bring up to that moment. And then onward you have to let the Dhamma to work, and then you are really sucking or tasting the sap of the Dhamma. You understand every thought moment is full of Dhamma, and you are now only ready to accept it, because you have given up the will, given up the emotion, volition and the intention, everything happens. And then you understand who the Buddha is, what is the Dhamma is, and you develop kind of a faith. It is not superficial, it is not blind faith. You see, due to your proper balancing of the faculties, you can cut through. And even without there is a full benefits, you can feel it, you can experience it, and you can develop your own confidence. And that is the point where the energy comes into the fulfilling energy, and there you have to increase the sitting time beyond 1 hour and let that chapter finish by itself. And that has to be happen again and again to season yourself, and ultimately you have to feel, sorry to put it that way, but to feel this is your real home. When you come back and messed up with your faculties and with the emotions and the self-gratification and the mortification, it's a hell of a mess. It is a completely strange place for a human being. This balance is the place, but from the time unknown, things unknown, we have been manipulating with these seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, and fighting each other that I see better than you, I see a better scenery than you, and one-upmanship and everything. Ultimately we lost in these faculties, lost in these sense impingements, lost in this sensuous gratification, and ultimately end up with mortification. But when you come to the middle, you see this is what the Buddha called humanity. This is our basic endowment. We are born with it, but we don't know, and therefore going to it, we need energy, because we are so much misled. So therefore up to that point it is called the learning process. All your learnings will be going against. All your trainings will be going against. All your pride and all your views and everything going against. That is why at that moment no volition, no will, no, even mindfulness is not necessary. Even the direction is not necessary. You must have the appreciation. And that is how the energy from the very big consumption to come to the moderate and end up with the zero energy, but the vehicle is directly aimed at the total emancipation, and it is a very silent kind of vehicle, and you are running it, no fear about the driver will mislead you. Everything happens. So therefore, more and more you go to that, you will understand, as I mentioned, the value of the Buddha and the Dhamma. And not only that, you will understand the value of oneself. Because if you are not coming up to that kind of a sphere, and still if you are going to live in this earth, on the earth, 100 years or more, what is the world, what is the value, what is the meaning of it, unless otherwise you have no comparative knowledge of this materialistic pleasure and immaterial pleasure. So therefore, the understanding and balancing of this energy is very important, and I hope you have done enough mistakes so far. So therefore, based upon your own mistakes, you can find the balance in the energy. Then slowly you will know how to go into this autopiloting way. But anyway, daily when you are sitting, don't assume that, but unassuming way you have to start like a beginner, and then you will know how to come up to that kind of a level within few minutes. Not only that, in the sitting, sometimes you may reach in even the walking meditation. And amazing enough, sometimes in the midst of day-to-day work also. Wishing you all have to have this kind of a balance. I stop my talk. Thank you very much for listening.